I mean, I know this looks like an ice bath video. It kind of feels like one right now, but I just got out of the ocean and I'm scouting new places to go spearfishing closer to my house, and it's really cold, and it's also I was kicking myself when I got in the water for not bringing the GoPro with me, but I didn't see any big fish. There's just a lot of small ones, and then some crabs about a little bit smaller than the size of my hand. But it was cold, and probably go later this week. So we're supposed to get a heat wave in Massachusetts, so that should be good. Other news and updates. The ear, I'm not wearing the magnet anymore. Because of the cauliflower, the smaller sections I have in there that the magnet kind of pinches, and then also the fact that you're putting a magnet over an injection site. Like, I've had my ear go purple where the magnet was, and it's just too annoying. It falls off when I sleep anyways, so I'm going to do a doctor's appointment this week, and I'm just going to have it drained and then put 2 stitches in there, maybe 1 stitch. But it was too painful and too much of an annoyance to deal with the magnets, so I'll be returning those. And then I was thinking about it, like the dopamine detox that I've been doing. I think we're like 3 weeks in, and the question of whether, like, the whole point of the detox, or what I call the detox, is to answer the question of, can I learn more from books? Or can I learn more from my own intuition by not distracting myself with other things than I can from books? And I think I got the answer to that, and that is kinda. It's more of like a balance where I forget who put it this way, but one of them put it the best way, and it's like, when you work out, you destroy your muscles and you get them all tired, and then you rest and you fill in the gaps. And it's kind of like you live life and you get a little bruised up and you make some mistakes, and then you read a book or two and you fill in the gaps, and then you just keep repeating that process. I think that's the balance I'm gonna go for. So I'm not going to be continuing with the dopamine detox I've been doing, in the sense of necessarily limiting my time listening to audiobooks when I deem an audiobook good enough to listen to. I've talked about this once or twice in some other videos, but there's this book called The Greatest Salesman in the World, or The World's Greatest Salesman. It's one of those 2 titles if you're interested in reading it. But it's basically a book that has 10 chapters, and each chapter is about 5-ish pages long, and you reread the same chapter first thing in the morning, after lunch, and right before bed every single day for 30 days, and then you move on to the next chapter, and you just keep doing this. And the first chapter in the book talks about the importance of habit and forming good habits, and how you're slave to your habits. So form good ones, and then you'll be slave to good habits. I mean, one thing being more conscious, being more aware has shown me is, like, how little I'm actually conscious and aware. Like, I don't know, it's like you step a little bit out of the forest, out of the trees, and you start seeing the forest. Or what's it saying? You can't see the forest through the trees. So when you become more aware, like, you step out and you look back and you're like, oh my god, look at all these things. And now I'm like, okay, well, I mean, if I can't necessarily leave it all together, because you can't be 100% conscious, and I've made another video talking about it, but I can't leave it all together, then what options do I have? And the options are, well, I can form good habits, and I can let those habits control my life instead of my bad ones. So I've seen great success in terms of forming better habits ever since I started brainwashing myself with the book. Because what the book kind of does is, as you read it every single day, first thing in the morning, it's like this promise you make yourself of, I'm gonna work on this and make myself better. And it's like every time you read the chapter, you're kind of course correcting a little bit and a little bit, and you're course correcting, and you're reflecting on how your day is going. You're correcting that course. Maybe you didn't start off that good in the morning, but midday you read the book and you're like, oh, it gives you so many opportunities to catch yourself and to form these better habits. So anyways, I've had great success with that. So, oh my god, I'm saying so many times. I have had great success with that. Therefore, I'm going to be looking to implement it in other ways. And implementing, for lack of a better word, brainwashing in other ways, where you keep rereading a text, you keep rereading great pieces of literature, such that you start thinking the way the author thinks. Because a book is nothing if not a reflection upon the author's nervous system. When he writes the book, he's expressing how he thinks. So when you read the book, especially if you read it, instead of listen to it, when you read it, you're kind of looking at it and you're thinking, what word comes next? And if you're not consciously aware of this, you're kind of like, in your mind, at least for me, I try to like predict what word he's gonna say next, and then he says the word that he's gonna say next, and then I'm like, okay, well, was that correct or different? And then I kind of like have this tuning mechanism in my head of how I think the author thinks, and I adjust it slightly, and I keep repeating this procedure until I start thinking the way the author thinks. And I think this is kind of how you train AI in neural networks, where you give it information and then you tweak it a little bit, and you give it more information, you tweak it a little bit, until it can correctly identify what actually should be coming next. So, at least in my mind, this makes sense, and I've seen results from it in terms of being more consciously aware of my habits and forming better habits. So I'm going to be implementing this and seeing if I can't brainwash myself to think as other great people will think. Let me get my phone out. There's a line in The World's Greatest Salesman. Did I close it? Yeah, I closed it. Give me 2 seconds. So there's a line in the first chapter of The World's Greatest Salesman, which is, "Today I will pluck the grapes of wisdom from the tallest and fullest vines in the vineyard, for these are planted by the wisest of my profession, who have come before me generation upon generation." And yes, that... what's this next one? "Today I will savor the taste of these grapes. Today I will savor the taste of grapes from these vines, and verily I will swallow the seeds of success buried in each, and new life will sprout within me." Yeah, the book it's metaphorical and talks about stuff in that way, but it makes it easier to visualize, which is why I think they do it. But the seeds of success planted by those before me, and like the grapes of wisdom, why reinvent the wheel? Like, that's one thing I was thinking about, is you need to have periods of reading and learning and then reflecting, because granted, I do think I could learn all of the stuff I would need to learn by my own tuition, but how long would that take me? I mean, you don't necessarily see people in the sciences being like, no, I have to discover everything for myself. I mean, look at how long that took humanity. No, you read what other people have done and you study their work and their thinking until you reach the pinnacle of what the current knowledge is. And then once you're in the undiscovered, then you go off of your own intuition. And I think when I first started this, I made an analogy to Albert Einstein. I said, if Albert Einstein can solve general relativity by holding the question of the speed of light from different perspectives being different, and then realizing that it's not different, it's constant, but time is actually different. If he can realize that through holding it in his head, what can I not realize? And one thing I think I neglected is when he did that, Einstein first studied and learned all this stuff and got to the forefront of the field. He didn't just go out one day and be like, I'm gonna learn science and I'm gonna teach myself everything. He didn't do that. Like, looking back, it's kind of silly that I had the idea, but it was an idea that went through my head, and I'm glad I pursued it. I'm glad I went down that path and answered the questions I needed to have answered. And I'm not going to turn, like, the whole purpose of doing it wasn't necessarily to do this, like, 30-day challenge. I'm gonna, like, when I did my ice baths for a year, that was a pure test of my willpower and my persistence and something I wanted to accomplish for myself. But that's not what I went into this with. What I went into this was a series of questions that I wanted to have answered, and I believed I could answer those questions through doing a 30-day detox. I think I've answered those questions, and yes, the dopamine detox has been absolutely amazing. I'll walk by while my family's watching TV and I'll look at it and I'm like, what is this crap? Like, I'm sorry, but even acting, like watching people acting on TV, when you haven't watched TV in a while, you're looking at this and you're like, it's like it's like the uncanny valley with AI, where like you're looking at it and you're like, this isn't real. And like, if you haven't watched TV in a while and you look at someone acting, like, even if they're a really good actor, you're like, this doesn't feel real, because you have a sense of what real social interaction looks like and real facial expressions when people are being genuine, and you're like, oh, this person's acting. And it's like, this, it just feels weird. And I've had this feeling in the past about TV, but if you watch enough of it, and it goes away, because you're like, oh, well, I guess this is just how people act. This is what normal is for social interactions. But anyways, getting off track there. The whole purpose of the 30-day challenge was to address questions I had, and since I've answered those questions, I no longer feel the need to continue down that path. One thing I will say is I am going to continue the not watching TV, the not watching the movies, and I just realized you can invest your time or you can spend your time. Are you spending your time or are you investing it? I mean, that's what it is. I mean, I'm young. I'm going to invest my time so it can pay off later down the road. And I think that's a great way to look at it, is like, if you invest your time and you keep investing it, then life will do nothing but get easier down the road. But if you spend your time, you're going to constantly be struggling. And I want to invest my time now so it can pay off later down the road. I want to spend my 20s working and building a business, building a company, so that it can pay off later down the road, and I can enjoy the whole rest of my life, rather than work and then enjoy my life necessarily now and enjoy my life isn't even like the proper way to say it. I do enjoy what I'm doing, but it's like I'd rather sacrifice some of my time, I'd rather do the hard work now. That's a better way of putting it. I'd rather do the hard work now and deal with the difficult issues I need to deal with, fix the issues with myself I need to fix, stop procrastination, and stop kicking the can down the road so that life will get easier. Good example, if you never work out, you're gonna slowly start decaying and falling apart in your old age, and you're gonna have horrible mobility. If you work out while you're younger, you can just maintain that fitness through walks and through the occasional lifting session in calisthenics, and you can maintain that all the way through into old age. I had a great uncle who lived to 97 before he died from a hernia surgery, and up until he died, like literally the week before, he would go down to the gym and swim a mile a day. 97 years old. Like, he just maintained his body and was able to be mobile. He was able, like, yeah, I don't think he was legally able to drive, but he could walk around. He could go for walks with me, and his mind was still sharp. So I'm looking at this, I'm like, well, I want to build something so that I can enjoy it in the future. And if that means I have to spend some of my time now doing more difficult tasks, then let's get it done with. Plus, I think it's also better doing it now because it's like I'm choosing to do the difficult part now rather than being forced into the difficulty later on. Because, I mean, when your health's failing, you don't really have a choice about how difficult your life is going to be. It's just going to kind of suck. But right now, I can choose to, like, just the knowledge that I am choosing to do this in order to better myself makes it better, more rewarding to do. Anyways, back on the topic. Yeah, so I'm continuing not using Prime, Hulu, all those TV shows, not watching TV. Besides that, I'm going to find a good book and brainwash myself with it, in addition to The World's Greatest Salesman. So I'll be making videos updating about that. Then I'm going to be canceling my Spotify. I really don't use it much. I didn't use it for a month, and I'm like, I think we use music a lot to distract ourselves from momentary boredom and kind of like when you're okay just sitting on a bench or sitting down with no distractions in front of yourself, and then you choose to listen to music, then this probably doesn't apply to you. But for the vast majority of people I see, they constantly need to have like music playing in the background as a way of like distracting themselves from for lack of a better word, like reality. Like, yes, this is reality, and then there's nothing more to it. Like, here's a good way of putting it. People not wanting to necessarily listen to their thoughts and be at the whim of where their mind could take them, that will sometimes use music to control what they're thinking. And this can be to the benefit sometimes if your mind isn't thinking what you want to think, but a lot of the time you need to understand why your mind's thinking that way and then address the issue instead of hide from it and use music as a distraction. Again, with everything, I tend to project the issues I've had myself onto topics large. and I refuse to see video games as beneficial, even though many people, like the creators of Cuphead, which I never actually played, but I saw a YouTube documentary talking about it. It's this beautiful and artistic board game. Well, not board game. Computer game, or I'm sure they've adapted to other consoles. But it's this game, and they hand illustrate it, and it's very well done from what I saw. But the people who made it talked about how the inspiration was these video games they used to play in their childhood. And I'm like, oh, well, that's interesting. Video games are beneficial to you. I have had nothing but, I can see video games is nothing but things I've wasted my life with. And I mean, that's the view I kind of look at them with. So that's the view I talk about them with. And I do realize other people have different perspectives on video games, but seeing as I've never understood a video game to be anything but a waste of time, that's what I talk about. And yes, sometimes they're enjoyable waste of time, but I've never once looked back and been like, I'm really, really, really happy I spent 8 hours or 4 hours or 2 hours playing this video game today. I might be really impressed, like I beat a level, or like I killed some boss, or I won at some, I don't know, Call of Duty map. I'm like, oh yeah, I won. But looking back on it a year later, I'm like, how many hours did I spend on that? Like, don't even tell me. Like, oh my god, this is like wasting your life. I mean, in the moment, yeah, sure, I might feel happy about it, but looking back, I have nothing but like, I don't want to regret things, but it's like, if I could go back and do it a different way, I would have like thrown the remote at my face and told me to get my butt off the couch. Yeah, anyways, I'll be updating and letting you guys know how the brainwashing is going. If you have any good recommendations for books, leave them in the comments down below. And what do I want to end this video on? Oh, here we go. Click here to watch a video talking about my understanding of how to easily, like, if you are a slave to your habits, how do you build a cycle that helps you build greater and more beneficial habits? How do you build momentum and direct that and kind of use it to guide yourself? And it means the reason why because I do jiu-jitsu, I've stayed in shape and my life has done nothing but get better, and I talk about that. So click here to watch it, and peace out.